Hey, this is John Reed. I'm back home from the SAP Sapphire 2025 experience in Orlando, as well as the ASUG annual conference. Did a bunch of sessions, already got some article content out and a bunch of podcasts coming your way. I wanted to share with you some highlights from our SAP live watch party for the first time. We actually did a live commentary stream over the opening keynote on Tuesday. That was a 2-hour keynote. Some of the replays available on LinkedIn, but what I thought would be fun would be to actually try to capture the pregame and postgame reviews. So what you have here in a couple seconds here, I'm going to tee it up, preview the keynote with myself, Josh Greenbaum, and Bonnie Tinder, where we each kind of share our expectations for what we were looking for that day. And then you're going to get the post-game show, which is another, about 10 minutes of wrap after the keynote. So you get kind of a before and after vibe, which will give you kind of a sense of what happened. If you haven't watched the keynote, you can get it, I think, still through SAP's virtual program, but it's also on the YouTube channel. So there's a few different ways you can consume the keynote itself if you haven't seen it. I also wrote about it on Diginomica a little bit in the context of overall themes. I don't put huge stock in keynotes, but I do think they can be important for perception in certain ways. I thought the opening keynote was pretty successful. Anyhow, that's it for now. So you're going to hear now the pregame version. Then I'm going to come back and set up the postgame. Hello, we are live for the SAP Sapphire ASUG annual conference watch party debut. Hello, Bonnie and Josh. How are we?
We are good. Yes.
Cool.
I'm speaking for myself. I'm good. Bonnie, you look good. John, you look good.
Thank you.
What do you got for here?
Good as well.
Well, so I am very pleased to have these two with me for this debut. I think we've overcome various technical challenges of doing this. So thanks again for joining. And if you're on the stream, which you may be at some point here, just add a comment because I'd like to run a couple of tests with you. So I don't think we have anyone yet, but so yes, it is just a riveting pregame session here with excellent canned music coming from the stage.
Said not only was it record breaking, but it was a larger number of both partners and customers. So it wasn't like it got front loaded with partners, which is often the easier thing. And being able to claim that in the middle of this crazy, economy, when attendance is down in a lot of other places, that says a lot, actually, positive about SAP's kind of staying power in confusing times.
Yeah. I mean, even from the hotel that we're staying in, that completely booked here and, a lot of activity.
Yeah, too much. It was rather loud.
So as we get ready for this, we'll probably reissue some of this as a recording. So just so you know, we're not going to be able to do much of a post game after the keynote because we're going to be running over to the press conference to see if one of us can ask a halfway decent question. And that's halfway across creation from our hotel. So, but we will do a little bit of pregame here in just a few minutes. I'm going to ask these two what they're looking for from the keynote. We spent all day yesterday getting an earful from SAP executives and having some nice back and forth, some of which was NDA and some of which is NDA that's going to lift as soon as they announce at the keynote. And then we can openly share with you like what we think. Mm-hmm. So that's coming. So Bonnie, let's start with you. What are you looking for out of today's keynote? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think number one, hearing more about this business data cloud, right? SAP BDC. They released this in February. What's been the uptake since then? How many customers have adopted this? What's new in this area? I think that's something that a lot of the audience members are looking forward to hearing. Number two, it's this idea of implementation and how the advancements in AI, generative AI, are really helping to make this process more efficient. And there's a lot of products as well that are really streamlining speeding up the implementation process and using AI to do that. I'd love to hear, how's that going to impact the ability for customers to move more quickly to the cloud or, to rise or grow, and how the AI is impacting that process. So that'd be number two. And number three is, of course, AI, what is being done there in terms of agents, how many customers are actually adopting and using things today. I'm really listening in for who are the customers who are using AI and Joule in production, and what are the early impacts of that. So those would be my three.
Cool. Josh, I'll get to you in a sec. And for those who want to kind of make sense of what Bonnie's done there, just keep track of Raven Intel after the show. And I'm sure Bonnie will have some really cool posts, usually with visuals that put mine to shame. So just real quick for those who are joining and watching, a couple of quick ground rules around this. When this goes live, we will be showing the Sapphire keynote, so you can kind of see what that will look like. I'm sparing you from the Joule commercial at the moment, but when it actually goes live, we'll go back to that, and you'll be able to watch it through the stream. Just keep that in mind, and hopefully we won't have any tech problems. Did my best to avoid those. So that's kind of what's going on. And the tradition of this goes back a long time, because we used to have these infamous Skype back channel chats in the old school mentor days. And these were basically just a running stream of just really snarky commentary during the keynote. Yeah, to some extent, it was probably a little over the top at times, but it did really help us to understand what was going on. And then lately, through Brent Larry and Paul Greenberg of CRM Players, I think they've really revived the notion of this watch party, but not like a feel good watch party, but more of like, let's try to make sense of what's happening kind of watch party, which I think hopefully we can all get a little smarter through that. If you're watching, post a comment or two. I'd like to see what you have to say. And then also we can test some of the audio with you. But anyway, so that's the idea, is we can all maybe get a little smarter. It could get a little snarky at times. That's part of the game. But our goal here is to also try to bring you some of the insights we've picked up on from the early wake-up calls that we got yesterday when we set our alarms. Josh, what are you looking for today?
Well, I am, we heard some very interesting changes to the rise and grow methodology and commercial terms and conditions that are, I think, a welcome change. We've watched this particularly rise I was about to say we've watched rise grow, and that would be really a horrible, bad pun. I won't do that. But we've watched rise evolve from a, frankly, sort of a messy start to what we heard yesterday is a much more practical and sensible evolution. Jochen, good morning to you, sir. Or I guess we'll move to you. And so, how rise and grow have evolved, I think, are really essential, because obviously this is a key, go-to-market motion for SAP. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for the details. I think it's going to look pretty good. As you know, John and Bonnie, I'm all over the tool chain, the Signavio, the LeanIX, WalkMe, Cloud ALM tool set. There's going to be some interesting announcements around that. This is a complicated story to tell. It's not easy to articulate the values that this brings, and it does reflect a different way of doing business, particularly on the implementation side, as well as the design and run side. That's a sea change for a lot of customers. So telling the story is really important. I think, and I'll add my third one. John, you and I are really all over the issue of how do you build strong business cases for SAP migrations. We had some reassurance from a couple of board members yesterday that that's important to them too, which is not surprising, and certainly shouldn't ever be under NDA, because that's a really great concept. So I'm going to look for sounds that they're really taking the message not just to the IT department and CIO, which is the traditional buyer, the traditional influencer, but really stretching to say, okay, and when you do these things that are technical in nature, here's the business value you get. I think that's going to be really key, and that's going to be, I hope, a strong message the whole week. What do you want, John? Should I ask you?
Right. Yeah, okay. I'll give you a short list of mine. I just want to double check real quick on the stream here. So, and by the way, I wouldn't mind hearing SAP talk a little bit about sustainability today. It's something SAP is deeply committed to. I happen to think there's a lot of business reasons for continuing that conversation, and I don't have a lot of patience for the political hijinks around putting it on the back burner, because I ultimately don't think it's a political topic. I think it's a business topic. So there you go for that. Um, so look, I have this whole thing around keynotes, and I've written a lot about this kind of stuff and events, and I keynotes are really hard to get right, okay? And that's one reason why I tend not to bury vendors like during a keynote, because I kind of want to. SAP actually has 3 keynotes this year. So they have like, well, if you want to count Jessica Alba, I guess I do.
It's a 4, doesn't it?
Yeah, it could be 4, whatever. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of them. So SAP's got to set the tone over all of that, not just today. But I always look for points of emphasis, right? So I worry that there'll be too much on agentic AI. I want to hear more around SAP's sort of global footprint and global capabilities and their commitment to serving customers on a global scale, because I think that's one of the things they do best is transcend geographies. A lot of their smartest, savviest competitors do not do that. Another thing I'll be looking for is a little bit of this whole SaaS is dead thing that's been going on with this sort of, and it seems kind of ridiculous that a vendor the size of SAP would need to kind of argue against that. But there is a little bit, I would argue, a bit of a technical misconception that software like SAP is going to soon be relegated to a series of API calls as a database managed by an agent orchestration layer that is not run by SAP, but by some third party. And we all know the culprits. Maybe we'll list them out later, but you probably heard some of them this spring. So SAP is going to have to put a little bit of a stake in the ground around how it is that they're still going to be essential in that world, and maybe poke a few holes in the hype. And the other thing that I think is really, really important for vendors right now is to show how much customers are succeeding without what's next. Like, in other words, like, software is pretty darn good if you implement it properly and use it well. So I think a lot of customers right now in the market conditions they're facing, they want stuff they can use right this second. So yeah, it's nice to know that my vendor that I'm investing in has a nice roadmap of new technologies. But what can I use today? Like, what am I underutilizing? What peers are going to go on stage and tell me, here's how to do this. Here's how we did this. Here's the challenges we faced. Never hear enough about the challenges on stage. So if I hear a mix of those things, I'll give the keynote a really high grade. But I got to admit, I got a really high bar. Okay, so now you've heard the pregame expectations and what we're looking for. And did SAP deliver? Well, we did a postgame. So now we're going to kick into that. And the first up is going to be Bonnie, and then you'll hear the rest of it from there. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed that. And maybe next year we can do that watch party action again.
No matter.
Bonnie, go for it.
Bonnie, you're up.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the repeated words that we heard were flywheel as a service, right? So the strength of the suite, really now being foundational to being able to unlock true value, be able to fully optimize the AI capabilities, and SAP full suite is the key to doing that. So that was like one of the themes. BDC, I think, a lot of continued good discussion. I really like that people intelligence demonstration that they had. What I'm still missing is like, what is the actual adoption as of yet? So I want to know more about that. Yeah, so those are my initial impressions.
Josh.
Golf as a service. I think that's a new one for us.
Yes.
I think I mean I obviously echo what Bonnie said. I think that I thought this was an exceptionally good keynote. I think that we saw some really good sort of reasons why exactly this best of suite, best in class SaaS story works. I think that we have there's a lot of moving parts underneath. Bonnie, you mentioned that at one point. It's one thing to show these great demos. It's the next thing to sort of execute what they're promising, and then there's a lot of wiring, a lot of infrastructure that has to go into place in order for this beautiful, effortless thing to take place. So I think that it's not simple, but I liked the fact that we saw some a big, I would say, a bigger emphasis on solving some real world problems. That kickoff demo was really good with those 4 personas showing how this stuff works and how it works today. Do we want to talk? Do we want to know what Luke? No, we don't want to know what Luke's doing. Good. So anyway, I think all in all, very positive. I think again, solving problems today, this emphasis on tariffs and complexity is good. I think it resonates well. And like I said at the beginning, this is what we saw in the last quarter. It'll be interesting to see what Q2 looks like. But I'm getting a sense that SAP's on a roll here for the moment.
Yeah, without a
Right.
doubt. And you know what? Look, can I interject one thing?
Yeah, please.
I also thought that that 4-person harmony of the different C-suite all operating together, the way that demo flowed, that was really interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. I think that was one of the best, most succinct, um, demonstrations of the value of an integrated best of suite, right? I mean, I thought that was executed so incredibly well. Um, the other thing on the Joule piece, I thought Joule everywhere all the time, to everyone. That concept, very interesting, but I mean, like I think about how does that actually get executed with the levels of security and, opening up the capability to have Joule in a competitor app. How does that, I mean, it sounds good, but oh my goodness, there's a lot of questions that I have now that short demo led to.
Yep, good point.
Indeed. So look, I mean, I I can't sit here and compare every single keynote SAP's done, but I thought this was one of their strongest opening keynotes in quite some time. I thought overall the pacing was really good. Granted, I thought they lost momentum at the end, and this goes back to a classic dilemma, I think, where a lot of the most fascinating partner work happening in the SAP world is not the name brand partners, but smaller upstarts. And I'm not saying that EY doesn't deserve time on stage, but whenever that kind of thing happens, I feel like you miss the opportunity to show a more dynamic narrative of more upstart creative partners in action. I will say that even compared to other recent keynotes, I thought the customer interviews were really satisfying and in depth and really laid out the challenge problems. So I really thought they nailed a lot of that. And with the agentic positioning, you saw a lot of response to the vendors. We mentioned ServiceNow a few times. It's not just ServiceNow, but you could see a lot of pointed references around not wanting to become the database of choice for some other agentic platform, and pushing back against that vision of the future of software, which I happen to think is not the correct vision of the future anyway. But SAP still has to push back against that, and I thought they clearly did that today. Uh, I will say that I think that we missed to talk a little more about an empowering future of work for employees. When you talk about reason and act, you're kind of really advancing the game past how do we help people do their jobs better, and how can the new technologies that are coming out help me to work smarter and better, and create a better workplace where I'm less buried at admin and more focused on the things I'm really good at, as opposed to, wait, we're going to take this work out of your hands and automatically automate it all. And I don't think that's what SAP wants to say, but I felt like that was kind of hanging in the air a little bit. So I would have liked to see a slightly kind of richer discussion of what SAP really wants AI to look like in the workplace. So I would say that would be the thing that I missed today. But they do have more keynotes to come. So let's see what they have to say about that in the future keynotes.
I'm not sure they know exactly how this lands. I'm not sure anyone knows. I mean, I think React and that concept of empowering existing customers is existing users is important. Where that starts and where that ends, relating to
No.
just getting rid of people is a big question.
Yeah, and I don't expect vendors to have all the answers, but I think like having discussions around that more openly, I think is good rather than kind of saying, well, here we are advancing into this world where these systems are going to reason and act on our behalf. I don't think that's where customers are mostly at just yet. So anyway, it's interesting. It's not an easy thing to nail down because SAP does want to show that they understand what's unfolding and that they're on the cutting edge of all of that. Mark earlier asked us to comment on the perplexity thing, and I actually don't mind when enterprise vendors partner with some of the large AI vendors. I just want to take a harder look at the use cases, and I really like the idea of integrating external data sources with internal data sources through AI, quote unquote, inference. I'm just not a big fan of search as an AI use case on the consumer side, so I don't really like bringing that into the equation because it's been shown to be rife with inaccuracies and problems. And so I have some questions about that partnership, but I do want to admit that we didn't get any advanced briefing or context on that one. So I'm just coming at that pretty raw. I don't have many details yet. So any other?
Yeah, and I think the Adobe partnership, also was something, very new that, we didn't have a lot of context on either.
What do we got going now?
Yeah, we got some music. If you want to catch the music, go to the live stream. We're gonna finish our wrap and head out just a sec. Any final thoughts from the two of yous?
I think it'll be interesting to go to the show floor. We have not had the opportunity to do that yet and see, how is this individually being, showcased, especially that robotics piece of things. I mean, that's a cool concept. It was a nice video. It would have been really cool if we could have seen a robot on stage, but maybe in the expo floor, we'll see some, more meat on that concept.
Right.
And Bonnie, you're going to be chasing down a bunch of customer sessions as well, so that'll be interesting to see what you find in those.
Absolutely.
I think speaking of show floor, I think also hitting the show floor to find those partners you were referring to, John, who are doing interesting, unique things. Some of the smaller ones, they're there. I'm going to be heading out there myself. There's a couple of I know there's a couple of interesting demos going on, some new stuff in some of the partner pavilions. So that's going to be something when in my copious time, I'm allowed to go down to the show floor. I will be checking that out.
And
Yeah, I mean, so many of the innovations come from partners, so totally agree, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh, you and I have an interesting afternoon. We have a couple sessions. I'm looking forward to hearing from customers at 2 p.m. in our business case session and really see how this stacks up with what they're dealing with. And then at 4, we're taping a live podcast. So if you all are on the show floor, if you're actually local to Orlando, come join the live podcast.
Yeah, we're in 330H at 2:00.
Yep.
And business floor. And show floor theater 1 with the honorable Jeff Scott from ASAP, talking whatever the heck you want to talk about. We got an open mic kind of thing going there.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks, folks. I think we gotta get our tuckuses over. Brian, I hope you survived the Dr. Pepper binge. We got to get over to the press Q&A.
Yeah.
Appreciate you joining me, and thanks all for commenting. Appreciated your thoughtful comments.
We'll do it again.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.